When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down.
Hey friend, Alex here from Audio Edges. I mix music full-time and I make these videos because the majority of independent music released today does not sound professional and therefore will not gain traction, and I don't want that to happen to you. Today we are mixing a dry lead vocal to sound fully polished, expensive, and radio ready. I highly encourage you to stay until the end because if you do, your mixes will never sound the same as they did before. Before we dive in, I have compiled the juiciest list of some of my best mixing tips into a short, free guide. This thing has gone crazy on TikTok and beyond, and I'm constantly hearing about how new mixers will keep this list next to them while they're mixing, and their mixes are transforming. Don't miss out on that because it's completely free. The link is in the description. Remember to subscribe if you're new, smash the like button, and drop us a comment below because today we are breaking through the myth of expensive sounding vocals. Let's dive in. All right, guys, so here we are. We just hopped into the DAW. I've got a little beat made here with a dry vocal on top. Let's have a listen. Okay.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we're young.
Okay, so here's the dry vocal.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
So what I want to do is show you exactly how I would process this vocal. So the first thing is that it sounds like it's already tuned. It's probably got some Melodyne on it. So all I've done is opened up just one instance of Auto-Tune Pro, and I found the key, which is E major. And this vocal is a female vocal, of course. So I've selected alto tenor because the range that she's singing in is kind of an alto range. It's not soprano. Soprano is like a really high female vocal. So we're going with alto tenor, and I'm not tuning this a crazy amount. Like
Never
as
slow down.
you can hear, I'll play with this knob, and you can just see that I'm just tucking the vocal kind of into pitch just a little bit. It really doesn't need a lot because it's already tuned with Melodyne.
Never slow down. Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down.
So obviously that's too much retune. So I found kind of just a little bit around here was really helping it just
Never slow down. Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
just sit just right. I got a little bit of humanize on there. I didn't really have to do too much. This is just kind of just a little bit of extra cushioning on the tuning side of things. So I started with Auto-Tune Pro. And what I'm going to do is just highlight a part of the vocal here and go over to our mixer page where you can see kind of the layout of plugins here. This is our lead vocal, and I have the lead vocal going into what I'm just calling lead vocal bus, which is only an extension of this channel because we do have a lot of plugins, but don't fear. It's not one of these situations where we're trying to over-process the vocal like crazy and it's way too much. It's more just using each plugin just subtly and kind of massaging the vocal. So next part of this vocal chain is Soothe 2. If you guys, whether you're familiar with it or not, you will find out momentarily that this is the most amazing plugin. I'm going to take it out of bypass and just show you what this is doing. It's a resonance suppressor. So it's taking some resonances in the vocal and just tucking them out of the way. I'll just play this so you can see what it's doing.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down.
And I'm gonna click this delta button so you can hear what it is removing. This is now to hear what we're removing from the vocal.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
And now I'm really going gentle with this. Obviously, we could push this harder.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we're young in love in a
But I don't want to do that. I literally just want to tuck it in a little bit. A lot of the times, I find Soothe 2 is amazing because it helps with resonances in the microphones in particular. Sometimes maybe it's not the right mic choice for the singer. Sometimes it's even a little bit of the room coming into the microphone, or they were a little too close, a little too far. And Soothe 2 just tucks all those resonances into place with the microphone, and it can just sound incredible. It can really smooth things out right away. So I've just got a little bit of this female vocals full range on there. I'm going to be using this plugin one or two more times in this chain just to do a little other subtle movements, but this is just a first little tucking in of some of the high high resonances, and then just keeping it smoothly in check along the way. So this is Soothe 2. That's kind of the first instance here.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
So you can still hear there's some resonances poking out, but we're going to handle those in a second. Here's our next plugin. We got a Pro Q3 on here. As you can see, I'm high passing all the way up to 130. Let's hear kind of what this sounds without any of this on.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never.
So I'm kind of cutting everything out. You know, with a female vocal, most of the time, unless it's a really deep, resonant, lower female vocal, you'll be good to high pass all the way up to about 125 hertz. You can kind of see where the lower notes of the vocal are happening. You don't want to like cut into the fundamental frequencies of the performance, but for me, this was a good spot to call it on this vocal.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never.
So we have another frequency here that I'm ducking out of the way dynamically, pulling about 1 dB out, but also pulling a dynamic range down to like -5 so that it can really tuck that frequency out of the way only when it's occurring.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow.
I got one more little EQ move up here with a frequency that was bothering me. Sounds like this.
Never slow down, never slow. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
Now, it's really subtle, and you can still hear there's a few other resonances poking out of this vocal. So this is where I really, really have massaged it with this instance of Soothe here. So right around here in this area,
when the weekend comes, gonna go out.
You can
never
hear
slow down,
right
never
here.
slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
That note in particular on the word love, that was really poking out. So I tucked that in as well.
Weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
And right up here with this part, this other little, this looks like a boost, but when you're working with Soothe, it's like a reverse boost. You're boosting in this area to show the plugin what to remove. So it's not an actual EQ boost or a resonant boost. This is like, if I raise this up, I'm removing more. So here's this kind of frequency area.
Never slow down, 'cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
So that's what it sounds like after. So
When
bypass.
the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down.
And here's with the Soothe.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
So why did I pick this shape? Because I wanted to target this frequency in particular, this frequency up here. Just listen for frequencies that are kind of bothering you in the vocal. And then here, I ducked this out of the way because
When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
I didn't want to affect these frequencies in this kind of range here from like 1K to 3K. I didn't need to in this case, so I'm actually pulling this down in the Soothe plugin because I don't want to affect those frequencies.
When the weekend comes, gonna go.
Or at least not as aggressively as up here. So it's kind of massaging this whole area.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. When the weekend comes, gonna.
So you can already hear, just with these few plugins, how different it's sounding. So have a listen before.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a.
So basically, this is these first couple plugins here are just really massaging out some of the resonances. So I like to use Soothe for that. I do have two instances. Some engineers might be like, oh, this is overkill. Really, not really, because in this case, I'm just doing a little bit with each plugin. Sure, you could use one instance of Soothe to do all of that really aggressively, but then you're risking really digging into the parts of the performance that you may not want to. So I'm just doing kind of individual little tweaks within each plugin. And with a computer with good horsepower, you're able to do that, and it's not much of an issue. So I kind of opt for this method where I'm targeting different things within different plugins. So that's what's going on. We're kind of suppressing some of the resonances, really smoothing out the vocal there. And the next thing that we have is an SSL EQ.
When the week.
Literally all this is doing is adding a high boost just a little bit, not even a ton, just close to 1.5 dB at 8K.
When the weekend comes, gonna go.
I'll boost it up a little more so you can really hear what it's doing.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
And so this is kind of where that expensive vocal sound comes in. It really, really comes in when you add a high shelf to the vocals. Typically, this will be a good move to make around 10 kilohertz, but it really depends on the vocal itself because this vocal is a little bit lower. It's kind of in the alto female range. And for me, I felt like 8K. I'll show you the difference kind of here, where the shelves start.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
Okay, so you can hear as I get to the higher frequencies here, it's a different sound as when I'm boosting a bit lower. So I wouldn't go much lower than 8K. Usually I'm starting this around 10K, but with this vocal being lower, like I said, we're just doing a little shelf at 8K because that's when that breathiness of this particular vocal recording really is coming out. So I just have a small boost, honestly. I'm literally just adding a little bit of brightness to it. And I'm going to add more brightness later, but I'm just brightening it up a little bit and shaping the sound a little more because it's just a little dull. And now we're going to hit the compressors. So I'll EQ again after compression, but I'm just kind of shaping the EQ, getting the vocal to sound how I want it to sound before getting to compression. Then I'll shape it a little more after. So the first part of our compression chain here is our compressor. And all we're doing in this case is, I'll reset this so we can kind of do it together, is I'm using this in a very, very particular way, which is to do peak compression and just remove the peaks from the vocal. And the reason I do that is because once I add another compressor later, like I have an 1176 style compressor, that compressor is going to be working hard and doing that real, more aggressive pop compression. But in order for that to really dig into the vocal and dig deep, if I tuck some of the transients out of the way a little bit that aren't really they're going to be a distraction to that compressor that's doing more of the work. I want to tuck those out of the way just a little bit so that the vocals, just those peaks are just smoothed out a little bit. And then the hard-working compressor that comes after this one is going to be doing the work on that as a whole and not getting distracted by little movements of transients at the top, if that makes sense. So how are we going to do this peak compression? Well, I'm going to do a fast attack, fast release because I wanted to attack those transients fast and duck them out of the way fast. I don't really want to be able to hear this compressor a lot. So it's more just a quick like tucking out of the way of some of just the loudest notes. I find a ratio of 3 is pretty good for this. And now all we have to do with this plugin is dial in our threshold so that it begins to take effect. So let's have a listen.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
That's too much, obviously, so let's back it off.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
I just want to be tapping the top of the vocal. So I'm going to go around here. This is good.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
So it's pretty light compression. I could back it off a little bit, but with this being a pop vocal, I'm okay digging into the vocal a little more. And now we're going to dig into it a lot more. So I've got here this 1176 style compressor. This is the CLA 76. I love this thing. There's a blue version and a black version. The blue version has a little bit more of a kick to it. It's a little more spicy. It digs a little. It's maybe a little more gritty. Digs a little deeper. The black is a little more smooth. I find this is just from my experience and kind of what I hear. When I was kind of playing around with this, I always tend to go to the same settings on a vocal with this 1176 compressor. For me, it always sounds best. Typically, genre depending, but with a standard pop vocal or rock or country or something like that, it'll typically sound really good to have your attack somewhere in the middle here and a fast release. And this fast release is what gives that kind of pumping compression sound of pop vocals that sounds so good on radio. So let's let's let this play out a little bit here, and we'll dial in our settings.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
I find kind of with pop vocals, if I can get this compressor pushing to this -5 to -10 area, it's usually sounding pretty good. I don't want to dig much deeper than that because then you're really over compressing things. We can also play around with ratio.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
So remember, a higher ratio is more compression.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
So this is with 4,
When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
with 8.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down.
So for me, I found 8 was a good spot. I usually don't go past 8 with vocals. Most often, I'll actually have a ratio of 4. But in this case, with the pop songs, you can dig a little deeper with a ratio of 8. But once you're getting to like, up here, it's really genre dependent. Maybe with some heavy metal vocals, you really want to dig in, put all buttons in, or go maybe even throw a limiter on the vocals. But in this case, ratio of 8, just nice, smooth compression. I'm digging pretty deep with my threshold, so I'm getting that compression sound. This all feels perfect to me.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
That's where you're really starting to hear that pop vocal, expensive, compressed sound. It's with this Blue 1176. So let me bypass it.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down.
And now let's hear it affecting the vocal.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
And remember, you can always adjust your output to taste. This is often called like makeup gain, and you can bypass and align it so that the vocal sounds the way it did before the plugin in terms of volume matching. Obviously, it's going to be compressed now. But I found just kind of right here is totally fine. Maybe it's a little louder than it was before. Not a big deal. We're not like clipping the vocal or anything like that, so we don't have to stress about it. Next up, whenever I add compression to a vocal, especially that nice 1176 pump to the vocal, that pop sound, it's going to bring in some low end in the vocal. And that's just kind of a character of the compressor that I find is there a lot of the time, especially as you dig deeper into compressors. It's bringing out low end in the vocal, and that's just because it's thickening the vocal. When it smooths out the vocal transients, the vocal feels thicker, and I find that you can handle that by just doing a little bit of EQ in the low end and tucking those low mids and the lows in a bit. So here's all I have. I just have a dynamic shelf here starting at 400. The main kind of area in this vocal that I found got a little bit thick here was right here. All these vocals here, okay? So let me just grab a new part of this vocal track for us to look at, because it's always good to make sure you're looking at different parts of the vocal. And here's what's going on. So all I did was a low shelf. Okay, this is a shelf EQ. See? Shelf style EQ.
Never slow down.
And I'm kind of getting to the edge of these lower frequencies here. I'm not taking out a lot, minus 1.7, minus 0.78, and a little dynamic pull on it as well.
Never slow down, never slow down.
And as you can see, the compressor added some low end information here that we don't need. I'm just high passing that off.
Never slow. When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
So like we said, a lot of the times with these plugins, I'm just making tiny tweaks. So yes, it maybe looks like a lot of plugins, but the adjustments within most of them are pretty small and subtle, okay? Next, I'm controlling the Esses. This is just a de-esser. I find that wide sounds best, the wide setting. De-essers typically have a wide and a split. Wide sounds more natural on the vocals, so I'm going with wide for that reason, because it sounds more natural. And now I've just dialed in. A frequency here close to 7K, and I can monitor that frequency to help me find it. So So I've used this monitoring feature here to find where those S's really poke out, and I'm just tucking that in
Never
here.
slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
So I only want the de-esser to be working on the S's. I don't want it to be like digging into my actual vocal and into my actual high frequencies. So I have it set just in a sweet spot here where it's pulling my S's in a bit. That's all we need to do. I think it's sounding great. Next up, this is where we really get that expensive pop sound out of the vocals. This is a hidden gem if you've made it this far in the video. Like I said, if you make it to the end, your vocals will never sound the same. And this is one of these tips that I can't even believe I'm sharing right now. I'm so excited. This is just a simple multi-band compressor. And I'm just compressing a few different bands here. I use the pop vocal preset, which is right there, as a starting point and tweaked it into what you're seeing here. And what I really, really like with these multi-band compressors is you can boost the highs on them. As you can see right here, I'm boosting the highs, but then I'm also squishing them in with the compression. So it's kind of like it's like compressing and boosting the highs a little bit too. It depends what you set this range to, because this is the amount of compression. I could have a boost here in this middle section, but if my range is pulling it down for enough, it's not actually a boost. So it's really just smoothing out all these bands of the vocal to just sound so creamy and silky, and I just love how it sounds. It's honestly, multi-band compression is a secret of pop vocals that you need to know. So I'm glad that I'm able to share this with you right now. Here's how this sounds after I add it. You'll hear a lot more highs. You'll hear the vocal feels really smoothed out and very poppy. So here's without.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out.
And here's with.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
So you can see how these mids here are really being compressed.
Never slow down, never slow down.
Here in the lows, I've actually I don't have any gain going on. This is just all negative compression, really controlling these lows here.
Never slow down, never slow down.
And you have to be careful because it's easy to get carried away cutting out lows, but then you lose the body of the vocal. So you have to consider the song. You know, lots of the times pop vocals will have a lot of the low end cut out because you're just having kind of a crispy high vocal on there, and you don't need a lot of body because the production is so full. But if a production is stripped back, there's not as many elements. You might want more body in the vocal. So really consider listening to the instrumentation, depending how much you compress the low end, how much of the low end you cut out, and how much you're digging into those low mids. Okay, so also I'm going to let you hear the highs here. They're sounding really crispy. They are boosted quite a bit.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend.
But they're compressing at the same time, which is giving them that crispy, expensive, bright feel.
Never slow down, never slow down.
So, if that's too much, I'll back it off later, but this is kind of where I landed with that multi-band compressor. Next up, I got one more instance of Soothe, it looks like, and this is just doing a little bit more de-essing on the top. I'm not using this instance of Soothe as like a resonance suppressor for the whole vocal. I'm just smoothing out those S's. Sounds like this.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend.
And I just grabbed the invisible de-esser preset under vocals just down here, and I'm just tweaking that to taste. So that's kind of what's going on with this plugin. And I think that is kind of all we're doing there, just a little bit of de-essing. Last few steps along the way here is saturation. Okay, so I got Saturn, and I'm saturating and making it a little bit brighter in the highs, as you can see.
Never slow down, never slow down.
This is what really adds character and makes the vocal pop. So let me bypass it.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend.
And let me now let us hear what it sounds like.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down.
So all I'm doing, I'm using this tape here, and literally, I've done a little bit of boosting here. This is more of an EQ move than anything to do with saturation, because this warm tape saturation, just a little bit, is mixed in across the entire vocal. Okay, so just adding a little bit of tape saturation with Saturn, and I made a few EQ tweaks in here by raising some of these bands in level. Last up, this is the secret sauce. This is Devil Lock. This is just to crush the vocal a little more. It may not be necessary, but sometimes I like to finish off the vocal with this, as it can really just like destroy it and make it feel so good.
Never slow down, never slow down.
You can see my mix is 2.5. I like to have crush around 6, crunch around 2, and this just adds a little bit of extra saturation and character to the vocal.
Never slow down, never slow down.
So lastly, we got a Pro Q3 on here, just cutting out those lows again, a little bit of a, controlling those low mids a bit, and a little boost around, it looks like here in some of the mids, the high mids.
Never slow down, never slow.
Bypassed.
Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend.
And I think I could see like there's some missing frequency content in here. Not a lot, but I just want to lift that out a little bit. And that's what we have going on there. So this might look like a lot, but remember, all that's happening is just some subtle movements. Everything's very strategic and done for a reason. We're not going super, super crazy with these plugins, but we are digging into the vocal. We're compressing it quite a bit. And I want to show you what it sounds like before and after on its own, and before and after with the music. So here's with no processing. And remember, see these plugins up here? Remember what we said at the beginning? They're just a continuation of this vocal chain. And that's just because Pro Tools doesn't allow me to have more than 10 plugins on one. So I'm just busing this channel into an aux return here, not an aux return, an aux track, where it's able to, where I'm able to continue adding just a little bit of extra sauce to the vocal. So here's the vocal with nothing.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
You can hear those resonances poking out. You can hear it's dry. Let's add in our pop vocal processing here that we just did together.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
So let's hear it with the instrumental beat here. This is just a really simple beat I made for fun to kind of complement this vocal in the meantime.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
Okay. Now let's add on here our processing, and let's have a listen.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down.
Okay. And so obviously it still sounds really dry, but it's a lot more bright. It's a lot more crispy. Sounds a lot more radio ready and expensive. Okay. I'm going to do just a couple little things here to help the vocal sound a little more wet and gelling kind of with the song. And all that is I'm going to add some width. So I'm sending a stereo aux named vocal wide. I'm sending it at unity gain, and I'm just going to pull a little bit of micro shift. This is a Sound Toys plugin. Just going to throw this onto this aux track here. I'm going to grab lead vocal clarity, make it all the way wet, and I'm going to blend this in here, just so we can hear what that sounds like.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
So the trick with width is you want to blend it to the point where you can just about hear it and then back it off a little bit.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young in love in a ghost town.
So that sounds perfect to me. I'm going to add just a little bit of reverb so that you guys can just hear this, how it would sound a little bit wet. Okay, I'm going to grab the RC48 from Softtube Native Instruments. This is a hidden gem that not a lot of people know about for reverb. So I'm just going to grab a preset here.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. 'Cause we're young
that's kind of a medium short reverb, but it's really creamy and rich. And now I'm just going to add a long reverb. I'm calling this vocal reverb 2. Okay. I'm going to use this same RC48. And let me just grab something longer here. Let's go. We'll just grab large round hall.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we're young in love in a ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down. When the week.
So that's just for fun, so you guys can hear what this vocal sounds like a little bit wet. All right, friend, you made it to the end of the video. I hope you made some breakthroughs here. I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed working on this vocal with me. Now, don't forget to go grab that free mixing hacks guide in the description. You're absolutely gonna love it, and it's gonna help you make more breakthroughs like this. Would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, drop a comment, and we will see you next time.